User interface design or user interface engineering is the design of user interfaces for machines and software such as computers, homes, appliances, the mobile, electronic, etc., with the focus on maximizing usability and the user experience. The user interface is the graphical layout of an application. It consists of the buttons users click on the text they read, the images, sliders, text entry fields, and all the rest of the items that the user interacts with. As far as the customer is concerned, the interface is the product. So they don't really think about anything else that's happening. They just see like the beautiful bells and whistles that are created. Design can solve society's biggest problem if we cultivate a love of learning through the design process. In many ways, UI design is the graphic design of web design. I always say that, and I know it sounds like really weird and a little bit backwards, but if you actually think about it, it's literally what it is. When you think of graphic design, it's like you're creating a poster, you're creating a logo type thing, and a website is literally just that, but has the ability to scroll. The UI is what connects the user to the goal. Your skills and knowledge and intuition as a designer provide you with a natural aptitude for UI design. And it's in your hands, eyes, and design sense that connects the interface with the user in a way that not only looks good, but it feels real good. So the UX designer provides the where, the what, where, and why. So all the research, almost like your rationale as to where things are going. And then the UI provides the look and the feel and the connection. So again, kind of talking fonts. What do those fonts look like? Do they match our target? Do they match what who we're working with, what we're working with, etc.? So what does the UI designer do? The roles between UX and UI cross over frequently. In some cases, you can be either or both. Generally, small companies will probably just have a UX UI designer. Big companies or companies that are strictly UI and UX, you will probably just have a UX team and you will have a UI team. But again, it's not to say that each person doesn't have the ability to essentially kind of cross over. You probably just won't be assigned the roles if you're, say, the researcher for the UX project. You probably won't be sitting there and adding colors and stuff to your site, but you are able to add input because you have all of that knowledge from the UX side. A UI designer designs the interface for web products. They execute all visual design from concept to handling the approved files off to a developer. A UI designer creates storyboards, wireframes, high fidelity comps, and prototypes to facilitate the efficient production of a web product. In a large company, a role would be more focused on UI. In a smaller company, you could be asked to fill UX and UI roles, as I was just noting. An entry-level UI designer will be asked to provide some skills. So here's some of the skills, kind of like we were talking earlier that, who asked me about that? I already forgot, I'm so tired. Nurgil had asked, I believe. So experience in design for both web and mobile apps. This one is probably the key. You never want to say, oh, I could design for desktop, but I don't know how to apply it to mobile. That's no go. You want to make sure you're able to cross those two over always. You understand responsive design, which is essentially designing a mobile and web. Strong type and layout skills. Have experience in UI tools. So I can't remember who was asking the other day as well about which one is the best to use. Like I said, you could focus on Sketch and Figma and be pro stars, and you're going to walk into a business and they say, oh, we use XD, and you're like, son of a. So I think as long as you know one, you will be able to navigate around the others. Experience and knowledge with sitemaps, user flows, wireframes, comps, and prototypes. Knowledge in HTML and CSS. This is not my lecture, so I, in fact, would probably say this isn't a must. They might say it would be good to have that knowledge, but I don't think you need to be too concerned about knowing all of this. I think the fact that you all are having a couple courses on it is probably helpful. Must be able to work independently and with a team, good management skills, attention to detail, aware of trends, etc. Like most digital design fields, the tools of the trade change often. Not only can a tool advance with more features and capabilities, but other tools in the industry gain popularity and become knowledge. We'll talk more about UI tools in the next lectures. So 6 best practices. Like most disciplines, best practice in UI design are a must. This allows for easy collaboration, cohesive design and workflow, and consistent developer handoff. So keeping things simple. So sometimes when using an app or a web product, you aren't aware of the interface and you have the best experiences. A well-designed interface is typically a simple one. Clutter and irrelevant contents removed. The user only sees the task at hand. I think we kind of talked about that many years ago. Sorry, I have to plug my computer in. Many years ago when designing websites, you would generally design it with all these cool, crazy flashing things. That's when Flash was really big as well, because kind of the cooler and the more things that came zooming in and out, the better. Most definitely not that way. It's all about accessibility. It's all about proper placement of things. So again, simple. A clutter design is never going to be a simple design. And presenting a clear path for the users. So recognizable UI elements. So presenting a user with common UI interface elements allows you to not have to learn how to navigate. So like having some weird floating menu down like somewhere midway in your site. Top corners are generally it, maybe bottom corners as well. Buttons, drop downs, mega menus, etc., all available for the designer to utilize when presenting the content. And when a user doesn't have to learn how to access content, they get things done. Layout obviously is key. So your graphic design skills are going to get flexed here. Creating patterns, hierarchy, and priority is crucial. Attention to detail can be the difference between a user flowing through an interface or noticing that something's wrong. That's kind of one of those things that you can go to like a beautiful luxury resort, but if the faucet in your bathroom is busted, that's like the only thing you're going to think about. You're like, well, that's really great. The place was nice, but that damn faucet was broken. But you're forgetting about all the other really beautiful things happening. So make sure to be consistent with spacing, font, size, lighting, exactly. All those things, everything that we know in design all applies here. Color images, you can make or break the experience, intent, or goals by not using the right imagery and colors. Same like typography that we talked about. Taking advantage of both color and imagery will direct or redirect attention with intention. It's always kind of like the key. UX and UI is always designing with intention. Random and careless use of color and irrelevant imagery is a common mistake in design. So always be strategic and purposeful with both of them. Be able to communicate, so make sure the user knows why they're there and what's happening. Use typography to guide users through the interface. Make sure actions required, so change in state, like your hover messaging, making sure, or your hover messaging, your hover button. So, you know, when you hover over a button, it changes colors. So you're giving guides to your user that that's clickable. That's where your mouse is essentially. So poor communication in an interface risks the user abandoning the task. Then accept defaults. So be aware of common solutions used by other best in the breed. So that's where research is going to come in handy. Lack of better terms, like copying and showing what someone else is doing. Nurgle, little kiss for the little one. Seeing what those pros are doing. If Apple's doing it, it's probably working right? So align the goals people are trying to achieve to default processes, allowing for minimum burden. And placeholder text, arrows, and gestures are ways to help the user anticipate what's next. You know, like slider images, there's always those 3 or 4 little dots, depending on how many slider is, so you know how many more images are going to scroll by, or maybe there's an arrow so you can scroll through them. Put the user in control of their experience, so allow the user to be able to backtrack through a process. This is, goodness me, it's such a big one, but sadly it happens often that I've seen teaching this last year. forgetting how to get back in your application. So always making sure you can return to home, always making sure you can still navigate through. Key. So provide strong visual cues and predictable interface elements to allow the user to explore an interface and not feel lost. Provide good feedback and acknowledgement. So when a user knows they've completed a task or have to yet, so congratulations or thank you for submitting that form, something like that always makes you go, okay, it's been sent. Make sure everyone can use the interface with ease and enjoy the experience. Make it easy for a user to engage with a product. So remove all non-essential relevant text. So again, simplicity is key. Don't insult a user by asking them for data they've already provided. So keep asking them for their email. That's annoying, right? Make sure interface elements are large and clear enough. Use visual metaphors like check marks when something's complete, an icon to indicate show content, and make sure error handling is well crafted and the solution is well communicated. The amount of concentration and mental willpower to perform a task can be daunting. So making sure we don't make them think too much. So again, patterns to help reduce data parsing. So things consistently in the same spot, you always click buttons the same way, no surprises, right? There's the ease and predictability. Using visual aids and then group relevant content. So always making sure we figure out the hierarchy of our elements. So interface elements should look and behave the same across the board, use the same visual styles. Elements should behave the same way again across the interface. Don't reinvent the process. So like I said, there's ways where you're like, oh, this could be really cool. If it's probably never been done, you're probably gonna have to go through a lot of testing to ensure that that's like the best way to do it. Placement of headers and nav items, spacing between data, etc., should all be the same throughout. Your job as a UI designer to manipulate interface elements, containers, inputs, and information to an interface that's not only pleasurable for a user to interact with, but seamless for them to accomplish tasks to reach goals. Any questions on that mouthful there?